I'm gonna tell you how I made this insane comeback from a 2.51 GPA to graduating with a six-figure offer from Meta. I know for a fact that none of the other tech YouTubers are gonna give you the advice that I'm about to. First, let me set the stage. I was down bad entering my sophomore year. My first year of college was just L after L. First, I didn't get into like any clubs. I had no idea that we had to like interview for them. This honestly caught me off guard the most. I always thought clubs were like a way to gain experience and explore your interests. And then boom, multi-stage interview process, plus super day, plus dress code, plus other BS. So after not getting into like any clubs and taking that fat L to my self-esteem, I proceeded to then get destroyed by all the classes that mattered for my major. And then finally, I somehow scrambled and got a last-minute finance internship that I ended up hating so much, I kind of just stopped showing up halfway through. Yeah. There was also a bunch of like interpersonal stuff going on in my life, but that's a can of worms that we are not going to open up today. Things were not looking good for little Will. I remember feeling so hopeless. I felt like I had already thrown away my one chance at college, like I peaked in high school, and that there was honestly no hope for the future. I was wallowing in like self-pity and despair and anxiety. I honestly didn't see a way out.
Here comes the money.
Here we go. Money talk.
Here comes the money.
So how did I turn it around? How did I come back from all these setbacks? I'm gonna talk about the larger changes that I made in my life that led to these opportunities and all this growth. As engineers and problem solvers, one of our most powerful tools is our ability to think critically about a system and identify bottlenecks that might be affecting our desired output. Something I'm really passionate about is applying engineering concepts and techniques to other areas of my life, like self-improvement and my personal relationships. Ultimately, we learn these techniques to solve problems. We don't need to stop using them when we close our laptops or put down our pencils. When I was reflecting on how these early semesters went, I noticed a trend. I always began feeling pretty hopeful and optimistic, and would actually do pretty well. Inevitably, I would mess up, get a bad grade, and then it would just snowball from there. When I really introspected on what was going on, I hypothesized this system. Basically, the moment I get a bad grade, I would start feeling negative emotions, which in and of itself is fine, it's natural. Honestly, it's good. You wouldn't want to feel happy with yourself when you're not living in line with your values. But then, when my brain started rationalizing these emotions, those thoughts would take the form of really toxic self-talk. These stories I was making up about myself would then result in more negative emotion. And then, bam, my system was stuck in deadlock. I was spiraling. When looking to improve systems, we must first distinguish between the constraints that we have to accept as fact and work with, and the variables that we can control and change. In this system, the only variable we can really control is the rational brain. With the help of my therapist, we identified that, holy crap, I was being so mean to myself. Like, imagine if your coach or manager or parents talk crazy to you like that. How would you expect to improve? These statements are the language of a fixed mindset. The moment I saw one bad data point, I just accepted that as fact. These statements like, I'm stupid, I'm a screw up, associated my sense of self and identity with these negative outcomes. This resulted in a lot of shame, spiraling, and paralysis. Over time, I was able to shift my language and mindset to one of a growth mindset, where the rationalizations that I constructed would keep the system going and actually fuel improvement. I started seeing setbacks as opportunities to grow, and when they happened, I would acknowledge that my actions weren't up to my desired standard, that I could have and should have made different choices, but I stopped attacking myself and instead focused on improving for the future. Just a disclaimer, this took a lot of work. No matter how many times you do it, mindset shifts like this will always involve stretching outside of your comfort zone. I'm not saying it's gonna be easy, but what I am saying is that it's gonna be worth it. Another shift was me creating a powerful story for my journey. Yuval Noah Harari in Sapiens talks about how one of humanity's greatest competitive advantages is how hardwired we are for stories. Our ability to believe in stories to unite us and inspire us is a key factor that sets us apart from other species. Some of the most innovative organizations are those who are mission driven, and we can leverage this as individuals to craft our own stories and missions to inspire and empower us as well. This is something that I felt was missing from my life because I didn't exactly have a great reason to show up every day and be on this path. Sure, I really liked computers and STEM, but I felt like I was just on the software engineering path because everyone else was on it and I heard it paid well. And also, I didn't really know what else I would do. This lack of purpose and conviction made it hard for me to bounce back when I encountered setbacks, and I felt like I was in the passenger seat of my own life. To come up with a powerful story, I started by first thinking about what made me unique, especially with regards to skills and passions. Some of my passions at this point in my life were cooking for my friends, planning trips with friends, and making memes. I also love using a well-made piece of software. I rebranded these as a passion for creating experiences that people love, and view tech as the path forward to work on crafting solutions that could solve important, modern problems for a vast amount of people. Now, this last statement obviously isn't revolutionary. I'm sure you've heard a similar line from other people, and I have too. But it didn't have power and meaning to me until I tied this narrative to other things that I intrinsically enjoyed. Only then was I able to internalize the story and have it really ground and inspire me. I also thought more about how I could leverage my unique strengths to better differentiate myself from my peers. One of the biggest lessons that I've learned over the years is that you'll be way more successful and fulfilled by striving to be the best authentic version of yourself, instead of trying to fit into a mold. One thing that I was really insecure about was the fact that I had never programmed in high school. This was a major source of imposter syndrome for me because CS at Cornell had a pretty intense reputation, with most of my peers having experience that ranged from destroying their AP CS classes in high school to even having internships before they stepped foot onto campus. Meanwhile, I got into Cornell as an undeclared major, thought the first few weeks of Intro to Python were fun, and just fully sent it. But now that I had this perspective of being the best version of myself instead of trying to fit into the CS major mold, I saw my non-technical background as a differentiator. Although I wasn't writing code in high school, I played 3 sports and I had leadership roles in my clubs. These were activities that supercharged my interpersonal skills, which meant that I thrived when I worked in teams. Although I don't play them anymore, I was also really into video games at the time. I also initially thought of this as a distraction that hindered my productivity, but with my new mindset, I was open to seeing how I could use it to my advantage. I had my eyes set on Introduction to Video Game Architecture. This class was a semester-long team project to come up with, build, and then release a video game. It had a reputation for being really high workload, which was a little stressful considering my past performance in CS classes, but I was confident that I could leverage my passions to grow into it. We were randomly grouped into teams, and holy crap did I feel inferior. It was like I was fresh out of boot camp, and I just got airdropped into the SEAL Team 6 of CS majors. These were sophomores and juniors with resumes that made them sound like industry veterans. I felt like a kid sitting at the grown-up table at Thanksgiving. I felt like Sokka in the FAANG gang. I felt like Left Shark from Katy Perry's Super Bowl halftime performance. But, as we all know, all of these characters had major glow-ups. I was determined to not miss out on this opportunity. I knew that this was my chance to level up. This is the beginning of my character development arc. So week 1. Our first deliverable is our team charter, which also included assigning 3 leadership roles: design lead, tech lead, and team lead. And when I heard that, I was like, for me? Me? Could be me? Could be me. Could be me. But again, the negativity started talking. In what world would it make sense for me to lead the freaking founding team of the next billion-dollar startup? Even though I felt scared, exposed, and vulnerable as hell, I was even more scared of living a life where I never found the courage to make a difference. So when it came time to pick the team lead, I stood up, made my case, sang my virtues like I was on The Voice, and then I got the freaking job! Oh my God. That's right, the kid who was in charge of the grown-up table now. I was living the freaking comeback story of season 1 of your favorite anime. I felt like I had plot armor. The rest of that semester ended up being one of the hardest of my life, but it also made me grow so much. We ended up making this super dope game where when you hit an enemy, they'd freeze for you to use as a platform. And I found my passion in leading teams to make really cool stuff. It led to me discovering product management, which became my true passion in tech, and I was able to leverage the line on my resume to even more wins. But more so than the technical experience and the lines on my resume, what this really taught me is that you can't wait for opportunities to come to you. You have to go out and grab them yourself. The harsh truth is that you will never feel ready enough or confident enough to try out the really scary thing that's going to really make you grow. Rather, you have to find the courage to be vulnerable and do those scary things in order to build confidence. Learning that lesson is what compelled me to keep being vulnerable, trying out scary things to make me grow, and faking it until I made it to graduation with a new grad offer from Meta. Oh, and last but not least, I got my first A's in the CS major. Sweet, sweet redemption.